Greetings, welcome to Provident Vox. I'm Baron Aragni.
And I'm Baronessa Aragni, and today we are going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
Explorers in the further regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others. We have such sights to show you. We'll tear your soul apart.
We're going to be blunt right from the start. What we're talking about today will probably make some people uncomfortable, maybe even angry, but that's a good sign. Because if no one ever challenges you in your practice, if you've never been forced to confront the ways, you might be sabotaging your own growth. You're not actually moving forward. You're just getting better at standing still.
Exactly. Today we're talking about a pattern we've seen over and over again in every magical subculture, in every tradition, among beginners and veterans alike. It's the relentless habit of looking outward for answers. Always searching in some far-off direction, in the next book, the next teacher, the next ancient-sounding name, anywhere but the one place that truly matters, within yourself.
And that's true. And the reasoning behind it is often dressed up to sound noble. I'm seeking lost knowledge. I'm reviving forgotten traditions. I'm pursuing the highest mysteries. And sure, sometimes that's true, but more often it's a disguise. It's a way to avoid doing the deeply uncomfortable work of turning that searchlight inward, seeing what's really there and admitting what needs to change.
And the danger is, it feels productive. Hunting for another grimoire, researching an obscure sect, memorizing another set of correspondences, it feels like progress. But it's often just motion without movement. You're chasing shadows in the corners of the room while ignoring the fact that the center of the room, yourself, is still dark.
And that's a tragedy, people. We've met people with 20 years under their belts who have shelves groaning under the weight of rare books and tools. Some who've traveled the world to visit sacred sites, who've been through initiation after initiation, and yet they've never built a true relationship with their own inner temple. They're encyclopedias of other people's systems, but strangers to their own power.
Which is ironic, because every tradition worth its salt, Hermeticism, Taoism, Kabbalah, and many others, teaches the same essential truth. The real temple is you. The true altar is your mind. The real commanding voice is your will. And if that core is neglected, no amount of outer form will hold.
Exactly. It's like thinking you can become a master swordsman by collecting rare swords. You might have a Damascus blade, forged in volcanic shrine, a ceremonial rapier with jewels in the hilt, a katana folded 1,000 times. But if you've never trained your stance, your focus, your reflexes, you're just a collector. And collectors don't win duels.
And the reason people avoid that training is simple. It's hard. Looking inward means facing the parts of yourself you've kept in the dark for years. You'll find the divine spark, yes, but you'll also find the rot, the laziness, the excuses, the fear, the little acts of self-sabotage that you've been politely ignoring, or is it conveniently ignoring?
And if you don't clear those out, they'll rot everything else you build. It's like cleaning out an old attic. You might find treasures, but you'll also find dust, cobwebs, and a few rats. And those rats, the undisciplined habits, the self-indulgence, the avoidance, will chew through the beams of your work.
Exactly. But instead of dealing with that, most people just keep stacking more boxes into the attic. More tools, more trinkets, more systems, more stuff. The robe becomes a crutch. The mantra becomes a comfort blanket. The carefully sourced incense blend becomes the thing you convince yourself you must have or the working won't take.
That's so true. Which leads to the first big danger, dependency. When your entire sense of power is tied to something outside yourself, whether it's a tool, a teacher, or tradition, you're always a spiritual client, never the master. You're forever waiting for permission, for resources, for the next step to be handed to you.
And dependency invites manipulation. When you believe the missing piece of your magic lies in someone else's hands, it's dangerously easy for them to exploit you, financially, emotionally, and even spiritually.
We've seen it. Practitioners handing over thousands to join some elite inner order that promises the lost teachings of Atlantis, or the real book of Thoth, or whatever shiny carrot is dangling this year. And after all that, they're no closer to mastery than before, because they've never done the one thing those teachings cannot do for them, the inner work.
And that inner work is what changes everything. When you discipline your mind, strengthen your will, and learn to generate power from within, you find you need far less outer ornamentation than you thought. The robe becomes optional. The ornate wand becomes optional. And most importantly, you realize that they have always been optional.
Exactly. Many people make mistake in thinking that is the center point of magic, but it's not. It's just a simple tool. And when you do use those things, they're not substitutes for power. They're amplifiers of power you already possess. That's the difference between a practitioner who commands and a practitioner who just reenacting someone else's ritual by rote.
Now, while we're talking about dependency, we have to bring up one of the biggest crutches of all, the perpetual calling on spirits. There are practitioners out there whose entire work is basically a roll call. Every spell, every need, every obstacle, they're summoning a being to handle it.
That is so true. There's many examples of people like that. And here's the uncomfortable truth about it. If you're doing that constantly, you're not practicing magic, you're outsourcing your life. You're leaning on spirits like someone leans on a cane that they don't need, until one day they do need it, and by then their legs are too weak to hold them.
You must remember that spirits are not your personal staff on your beck and call. They are allies, intelligences, forces. They're meant to work with you, not instead of you. If every working is just you handing over the entire job, you're not learning to wield your own will, you're just delegating it.
Yeah, that is so true. I agree completely. And over time, that dependence breeds spiritual atrophy. You stop making decisions without a divination. You stop taking action without an evocation. You start believing nothing will happen unless a spirit sign off on it. That's not empowerment. That's enslavement wrapped in incense smoke.
And here's what most people never consider. Over-reliance on spirits doesn't just stall your growth. It can actually damage your standing with those very spirits you work with. If every time you approach them, it's with your hand out and nothing of your own to bring, no cultivated skill, no personal power, they stop seeing you as a peer, let alone a master. You become a dependent, and dependents are replaceable.
Think about it. Why would a powerful intelligence, whether angelic, demonic, planetary, or otherwise, see you as an equal or such if you can't stand on your own 2 feet, even for the smallest task? You're not an ally at that point. You're just another petitioner.
And the more you do it, the worse it gets. You start to confuse the spirit's power for your own. You feel strong when they're present and hollow the moment they withdraw. That hollowness isn't because they left you. It's because you never built anything in yourself to begin with.
Practitioners like that, decades of experience, could recite dozens of conjurations from memory. But when the usual spirit stops answering, no signs and no results, they are paralyzed. Can't work a single thing without them. Years of practice and not a shred of self-generated force to show for it.
And that's talking about most of the practitioners nowadays anyway, to be honest.
Definitely.
But anyway, that's what happens when you outsource too much. You don't just fail to grow, you shrink. Every time you hand over the work, instead of trying it yourself, you're telling your subconscious, hey, listen, I cannot do this. And your subconscious rewrites your identity accordingly.
And the day will come when spirits test you by stepping back, or they're occupied elsewhere, or they simply want to see if you've actually learned anything. And if you've been leaning on them for everything, you'll crumble, because you basically have no foundation to stand upon.
Exactly. Which brings us to one of our favorite quotes. It's from the Dhammapada and attributed to Buddha. Although we know that this version of the quote is not a perfect translation of the source material, it is by far the most popular version. It is better to conquer yourself than to win 1,000 battles. Then the victory is yours. It cannot be taken from you, not by angels or by demons, heaven or hell.
It is such a beautiful quote. And that's the heart of it. If you conquer yourself, if you master your will, your mind, your discipline, No one can take that from you. Not a spirit, not a teacher, not a system. That victory is permanent, guys. But if you outsource your power, it's never really yours to begin with. And before we start wrapping up, there's one more branch of this looking outward problem that we cannot ignore: the armchair practitioner. The one who lives entirely in the realm of theory.
You know the type. Those who've read everything, can quote every occult philosopher from Agrippa to Crowley to whatever the latest trending name is, and can pontificate for hours about planetary squares, Enochian syntax, or the hidden meanings in ancient glyphs. And yet, when you ask them what they've actually done in practice, what they've tested, tried, built, or risked, there's nothing. Not a single working, not a single real operation, not even a personal experiment to speak of.
Exactly, they have the map, but they've never set foot on the territory. And the problem with living only in theory is that magic is not a philosophy lecture, it's an applied art. Its truths aren't fully revealed in the reading, they're revealed in the doing. In the moments when you're standing in the circle, feeling the air shift, watching the impossible start to move.
And that gap between what they talk about and what they actually do is getting even bigger in the age of social media. Because now you have a whole class of YouTube and Instagram magic personalities who present themselves as authorities, but whose entire body of work is commentary. They talk about magic, they review books on magic, they offer opinions on other people's magic, but they never actually do magic in any way that's verifiable or demonstratable.
No, that's so true. We've seen this so many times. And the danger here is twofold. First, for them, because theory without practice calcifies into opinion, masquerading as fact. And second, for their audience, because newcomers often can't tell the difference between someone who's speaking from experience and someone who's just recycling what they read last week.
Exactly. And the more polished and confident the presentation, the more convincing it seems, especially online. But behind the camera, there's no altar, no tools, no ongoing work, just lights, a microphone, and the ability to say what sounds impressive.
Which wouldn't be such a problem if they made it clear that they're talking theory, speculation, or interpretation. But so often it's presented as if it is tried and tested truth. And when people try to replicate it in practice and it falls flat, they either blame themselves or worse, they decide magic just doesn't work.
And here's where it loops back to our whole theme today. Because both the pure theory armchair crowd and the polished magic influencer crowd are still focused outward. One is looking outward into books, and the other into cameras and audiences. Neither is looking inward into the work, the discipline, and the personal proof that separates belief from knowledge.
Definitely. And for the armchair practitioner, on the other hand, the trap is especially seductive. Because study is important. Theory matters. You need a foundation, you need context, you need to know what's been done before. But if you stop there, if you never step into the circle, never perform the conjuration, never track the results, you're not a magician. You're an archivist.
Exactly. And let's be honest. There's a safety staying in theory. You never have to face failure. You never have to test your will against resistance. You never have to admit when something didn't work. But that safety is an illusion. Because without experience, you can't tell what's solid and what's hollow in the material you've studied.
And when you're following someone online, the same rule applies. If they can talk endlessly about magic, but can't show a single example of work they've done, a single result they've achieved, a single challenge they've overcome in the practice, then you have to ask, are they teaching or are they just curating?
The bottom line is this. Magic is an experiential art. You can learn about it from books and videos, but you can only learn it through doing. And when you spend all your time looking outward, whether into pages or into screens, you're still missing the heart of it, which beats only in the space between your will and the world. So here's a truth we've been circling the whole episode. If you don't build the inner fortress, no amount of outer alliances or tools will keep you standing. You can keep moving furniture around in a room you're afraid to live in, but that's not the great work.
The great work demands the risk of standing naked before yourself. No robes, no props, no allies, just you in the center of your own being, with nothing to hide behind. And if you can do that, if you can stand there and command, then every outer form you use will answer like a blade in the hand of a master.
Exactly. So before you reach for the next book, the next initiation, the next conjuration, reach inward. Build something that is yours alone. Something no spirit, no tradition, no external force can claim credit for.
Yeah, guys, that's where the work truly begins. Because once you do that, the spirits will meet you differently. The tools will respond differently. The work will deepen in ways no amount of outward seeking could have given you.
And that is where the real magic begins.
And if all of this sounds like too much effort, if you're just nodding along to what we've said, but won't really heed our words, don't worry, you can always keep buying props, quoting other people's work, and waiting for a spirit to do it all for you.
Just remember to light a candle for the only thing you've truly mastered, looking the part while doing nothing at all.
And that concludes this episode.
We thank you all for listening, as always, and we're actually glad to see that more of you are publicly commenting at least, and not just lurking about and sending us messages.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's much appreciated.
And as always, like, follow, subscribe, share if you would like to hear more from us, and you will hear us again next week, Wednesday.
And always remember, as above, so below.
As within, so without.